Who is Volodymyr Zelenskyy? Yeah, he's the president of Ukraine. He is either the most respected and courageous leader in all of Europe, one of the most respected and courageous leaders in the world, or he's horrible and people hate him and they want to kill him and they don't want to help him. He's a controversial figure. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to actually come and meet with him, because I believe he's the Winston Churchill of Europe right now. I think this is the guy who, more than anybody else in the world, has decided he's going to lead his people and the world into taking on Vladimir Putin. Okay, this is a battle of the Vladimirs, right? They actually, the names are spelled differently, but it's the same name. Vladimir Putin, he's evil. Volodymyr Zelenskyy, I think he's courageous. I think he's the Winston Churchill of our age. Now, I'm not saying he's perfect. Certainly Churchill wasn't perfect. Zelenskyy has issues, okay? He has not made every decision well or properly. He's made mistakes. I mean, it's a war. And he was not a politician. He wasn't a career politician in his life. He wasn't a governor. He wasn't the minister of foreign affairs or minister of finance. To be honest, he was an actor. He was actually a comedian way back. But he was an actor. He was from the world of show business. How did he become popular? Because he was the lead actor in a program. The show is called Servant of the People, and it became a huge hit here in Ukraine. Why? Because it was about a very normal but like super smart, but in some ways, other ways average high school teacher, a history teacher, who just goes on a rant, actually a vulgar rant, against the corruption in Ukraine, the corruption in his government. And one of the students secretly films this rant against corruption and how it's wrong and it needs to be changed and we gotta fix this. And in the construct of the show, Servant of the People, the student uploads this onto YouTube and it goes viral. I mean, like, everybody in the country is super fascinated. They're talking about it, and a lot of people say, yeah, I agree with that guy, absolutely. We hate the corruption. We need leaders who are serious and real and not politicians, people from outside of politics. And they elect him president. The high school teacher, as a character in the show, Servant of the People, becomes the president of Ukraine. Now, a few years later, Zelenskyy has become so popular that the actual real person, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, has become so popular that people say, you should run for president. You know, these are real issues. The issues you talked about fictionally on the show, they're real. And you need to go there and run for president and deal with the corruption. And so Zelenskyy starts a political party, and what does he call it? He calls it Servant of the People. And he becomes super popular, and he gets elected in 2019. He never run for office before, and he gets elected. What he doesn't see coming is 2022. February 24th, 2022, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, an actor, show business, a comedian back in the day, and Jewish, okay? Not religiously Jewish, but ethnically Jewish. He runs for president, and he wins. And on February 24th, 2022, all hell breaks loose. The other Vladimir, not Zelenskyy, but Vladimir Putin, decides to invade Ukraine. And what is set into motion is the bloodiest, most brutal, bitter war, the biggest land war in Europe since World War II, 8 decades, okay? Not since World War II and the Holocaust have we seen this much death and destruction. This is the biggest war raging on the planet today. Where am I now? I want to talk to you more about who Zelenskyy is and what he's up against, because in some ways it's art imitating or life imitating art, right? It's fact, it's fiction turning into fact. Like, Zelenskyy, he's not a general, he's not a military commander. This is not his life experience. He's an actor. Now, don't get me wrong, he's smart. The strength is not the actor or the comedian part. The strength is he's a communicator. He's a storyteller. He's a person who understands how to communicate to the public and how to connect with people and how to move people. And in many ways, that's Winston Churchill. Yeah, they look different. They sound different. They're very different people. But what was Winston Churchill's greatest strength? He had two, actually. Winston Churchill was right about the rise of the Nazis. He was the one warning, we have a threat. We have a threat. It's not being dealt with. The military's not ready. And then when the British turned to Churchill to elect him and make him the prime minister in war, because Neville Chamberlain had tried to appease Adolf Hitler and set into motion World War II, Churchill's greatest strength was not just that he saw this coming, because he did see it coming and he wasn't able to move anybody to do anything about it, but once he became the prime minister, he was able to rally a nation of people that were scared, confused, and unprepared. And it was Churchill's ability to communicate, not just to the British people and rally them, but communicate to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the President of the United States, who did not want to get involved and did not want to help, did not want to send weapons, did not want to send troops, right? So Winston Churchill felt very much alone. Go watch, if you're not ready to read all of his books, which are very, very good, go watch The Darkest Hour, a tremendous Academy Award winning film about Great Britain's leaders not wanting Churchill and then getting Churchill, and then Churchill rallying the nation and the world to come help Britain, help free Europe. And now, 8 decades later, Volodymyr Zelenskyy is having to rally his nation. I think his nation is responding much better than the British did at the beginning, but the British did well. I don't want to criticize the British back in the day, but he's having to persuade an American president who doesn't want to get involved. Now, I think Trump is doing better than FDR did, but I'm just saying, this is a heavy lift. I'm here, as we continue this conversation, I wanted to walk along this avenue in the heart of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, because this is a wall that has one picture after another. I mean, hundreds and hundreds, thousands of pictures of Ukrainians, brave, courageous Ukrainians who fought for their country and died fighting the Russians. You got to remember, this war didn't start 3.5 years ago. That's when the massive invasion came. But the war actually began in 2014, 11 years ago. And what you're watching here are people who brought flowers, they brought flags to remember their loved ones, their sons, their brothers, their uncles, their fathers, their grandfathers in some cases, who fought like lions to fight and to keep the Russians from taking over this country and just committing or subjugating Ukraine back to the slavery of what was then the evil empire, the slavery of Soviet totalitarianism. And yeah, the Soviet Union has collapsed, but look at the number of people that have fought to keep Vladimir Putin, the war criminal of the Kremlin, out of Ukraine. Zelenskyy, I think, is doing a good job, but he's made mistakes. I mean, you can't go through a war. You can't lead any organization without making mistakes. The question is whether you can identify those mistakes and correct them. I think Zelenskyy had a disastrous, let's call it near disastrous meeting with President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance back in the Oval Office in February. I mean, it was like colossally bad. Zelenskyy came into the Oval Office. He seemed emotional. He seemed tired to me. He seemed upset, and he seemed ready for a fight. Like he was ready to pick a fight with Trump and Vance. He did not listen to what they were saying. He did not seem respectful. He didn't wear a suit. Okay, is that the worst thing in the world? It is if you're trying to appeal to the President of the United States who wears suits and ties, and you make the president, in this case President Trump, feel like you're being disrespectful, that you're not taking this meeting seriously. Okay, we understand you're a wartime leader. You like to wear black T-shirts or olive drab green shirts and military khakis or whatever. Fine, that's when you're in your country. But if you're going to come to the White House, dress up. Show some gratitude, right? Vice President J.D. Vance said, "Look, you've gone through this whole meeting, and you have not expressed your appreciation, yours, much less your country's, for the $150 billion that the United States, the American taxpayer, has invested in you and with arms and other military aid to protect your country. You haven't said thank you. You're not showing respect to the office. You're not showing respect to the president, and the president's trying to help you." Okay, you guys don't agree on everything, but let's have a conversation. Let's not litigate our disagreements and make it something that Vladimir Putin can watch on television, watch the whole world, that the entire American people can watch how you, Mr. Zelenskyy, don't agree with everything that we're doing, and you're upset with us, and you think we owe you more. Look, I think Vance was right. I'm going to be very honest with you. I think Vance was right to call out Zelenskyy on that. And I think President Trump, you know, I don't want to make light of it because this is very serious and we're in the middle of a war, but but you saw famously, maybe we should show a clip, but I'll just say, and I think the president was right, President Trump. I think J.D. Vance was right. But this doesn't disqualify Volodymyr Zelenskyy from leadership. That was a bad day, and it sent a message to Putin, which was not a message that Zelenskyy intended to give, which is that there was huge daylight between the United States and Ukraine. And it's taken time. Zelenskyy, to his credit, later apologized to the president, later did sign a very important document, a deal between the United States and Ukraine, and then began to work, then Zelenskyy began to work with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and sort of reconstruct the relationship to be stronger, to close the gap of differences between the United States and Ukraine, to close the gap, most importantly, not between the people of the United States and Ukraine, but to close the gap between Trump and Vance and Zelenskyy. And I think Zelenskyy has worked hard on that, and he's brought in some other allies. One of those is Senator Lindsey Graham, who is a huge friend and advisor and supporter of President Trump, but he's also a friend and a supporter of the Ukrainian people and Zelenskyy. I think Lindsey Graham has played a good role in this. And I think also various European leaders were brought in as well, not to mediate the relationship, but to get everybody on the same page, to figure out, can we figure out a plan, a strategy to end this war, not reward Putin, strengthen Ukraine, and send a strong, powerful message to Putin and everybody else, every other tyrant in the world, the United States and Europe, the United States and NATO, the United States and the European Union, the United States and Ukraine are together. We're unified. We weren't unified 6 months ago, clearly, but things have gotten a lot better since then. And I will tell you, between Zelenskyy sort of course correcting, rightly so, he had to course correct, but also working closely with Trump. Trump, what has he been able to do? He's been able to persuade NATO to move from 2% of spending 2% of their GDP on defense, which they were resisting doing for years. And now Trump has persuaded them to move to 5% of their GDP on defense. And right now, Trump is the only person in the world who's been able to get Putin to start talking. Will it lead to peace? Will it lead even to a ceasefire? Right now, I don't know. But what I'm saying is I believe that Zelenskyy, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, is a very impressive man. I'm so glad. Honestly, I appreciate the opportunity to come and sit with him for about 45 minutes in the Situation Room in the presidential compound here in Kyiv and ask him, what's the situation? And to be able to share that with you. And I hope if you haven't watched that, make sure you watch those 2 programs on the Rosenberg Report. I'm honored to be able to be in Ukraine to listen to how do Christian leaders in Ukraine see this president of theirs, a wartime president, but also a Jewish president. Again, Zelenskyy doesn't emphasize his Jewishness. He's not particularly religious, but it's who he is. And if Christian leaders in a Christian country hated him and thought he was doing a horrible job, I don't think he would last that long. But he's doing a good job. He's leading his country, and he needs your prayers. And he's got mine. Daily, I am praying for Volodymyr Zelenskyy and his family and his team, and I'm praying for them to have victory, and I'm praying for them to have peace, and I'm praying for them to show the world is unified against evil. And I want us to be remembering the families and the friends of all these people that died fighting the horror, the evil, the wickedness of Vladimir Putin. These are heroes, and they deserve respect, and they deserve our help. And I'm not saying the United States should send ground troops here. Europe should definitely put ground troops here in a peace agreement to provide security guarantees that this can never happen again. Okay? The United States doesn't have to send our sons and daughters, but the United States needs to lead. President Trump is doing that. And Zelenskyy needs to do better, and I think he is doing better. And we need to pray for both of them. We need to pray for peace. We need to pray for security. We need to pray for the church. We need to pray for all Ukrainians. And from Kyiv, this is Joel Rosenberg with a YouTube exclusive for the Rosenberg Report.